Howdy, Homo sapiens. This is the first video in a series I'm calling Thinking Out Loud, where I am going to talk about a subject, hopefully say some interesting, thought-provoking things, drop it into the internet, and get people thinking, and hopefully they respond with interesting comments that get me thinking as well. So this first video is about beliefs. Now, about a month ago, I had a bit of an epiphany. And the more I've thought about it since then, the more it's made sense. And it's plugged very well into my worldview. And like most epiphanies, once you realize it, it's actually quite obvious and you wonder why you never thought of it before. Now, I know I'm not the first person to think of this. I don't think so much of myself that I think every thought I have is an original thought that no other human being has thought of. But to me, it's new. So this is my thought. Beliefs are not chosen. Beliefs are arrived at. Beliefs are conclusions, but beliefs are not chosen. Now, what do I mean by that? If you think about beliefs and how they happen, beliefs start with information or evidence. That information might be biased. It might be a lie. It might be wrong. It might be lacking. But that's where we start. We process that information through our reasoning, and that's definitely flawed. If you're a human being, you have flawed reasoning, whether you want to admit it or not. You have biased reasoning, and there's going to be a whole video about that anyways. And then we arrive at the conclusion. At no point through that process is there any choice at play. It's very natural. It is how human cognition works. Now, I see two main issues that people might take with this idea. The first issue has to do with us, and that is we really like to think of ourselves as the good guys, the good people. And one of the reasons we think of ourselves as good people is that we have good beliefs. Our beliefs are such a huge part of our identity, which is its own problem, because when beliefs are part of your identity, then you have a hard time separating your beliefs from yourself and critically analyzing them. But that's a whole other subject. So we think of ourselves as good people with good beliefs. We're proud of our beliefs. But if we don't choose our beliefs, then they're not really an accomplishment. We can't really be proud of them if we didn't choose them. We arrived at them. Now, the second reason why people might take issue with this is that we identify bad people by their bad beliefs. Just like we're good people because we have good beliefs, well, those are bad people. They have bad beliefs. They believe whatever it is that we don't believe. We might say that they're racist, or they're elitist, or whatever. They don't believe in the right to bear arms, or whatever they believe. Because they're the opposite of our beliefs, their beliefs are bad, and they are bad people for them. But again, if we don't choose our beliefs, we can't really be mad at the people who have bad beliefs. There's no place for our anger to go. Maybe we could be frustrated, but we can't really be mad at them. We can't hold them accountable for their beliefs if they got there through information, reasoning, and a conclusion, and there was no choice. Now, very important, we have to hold people responsible for their actions, and oftentimes bad beliefs lead to bad actions. They don't always, but bad actions are always arrived at from bad beliefs. So we have to hold people accountable for that, certainly, but we can't hold them accountable for their beliefs. So this takes away that anger that we have, that feels that self-righteous feeling that we have, where we're the good people because we have good beliefs, and those people are the bad people, they have bad beliefs. If we don't choose beliefs, that doesn't make any sense. Now, for people who take issue with this, or it doesn't make sense to them, I have a couple challenges for you to think about. One is, think of a political belief you have that you believe very strongly. You know it's true. It's essential to your worldview and to your kind of moral character. whatever it is, a strong belief you have, and ask yourself, when was the moment you chose that belief? When was the moment that you were looking at two stacks of equally convincing evidence and you just chose one of them, and that's how you arrived at your belief? I don't think you did. I think you, like the rest of us, found yourself arriving at a belief because one stack of evidence was overwhelming. It was impossible for you not to arrive at that belief. There was no way to not arrive there given the evidence and given your reasoning. The second challenge I would have, if you think I'm crazy or my belief about belief is crazy, is if I were to pay you $1,000, could you believe that there was a purple dragon flying above your house that's invisible? You could say you believe it to get the money, but you couldn't believe it. You couldn't believe it because there's no evidence of it, and because it violates the laws of physics, and because there's all kinds of other problems. You couldn't choose to believe it. You would know it wasn't true. So what I notice when you hear stories from people who've left a religion, maybe it's a particularly fundamentalist religion of some kind, they describe the moment that they lose their faith with very similar language. They say something like, I simply could not believe it anymore. They didn't say, I wouldn't believe it anymore. They said, I couldn't believe it anymore. There was just too much evidence against this belief. They were forced to abandon their belief by the evidence and their reasoning. They didn't choose to abandon their belief. Now, religion is a little bit in its own category with belief. It's a little bit different from political belief because of faith, because faith is a bit of a choice. It is a virtue, and people who are in a crisis of faith are often told by their other people in their religion or their pastors or whatnot, well, you should have faith, choose to have faith. So that's a little bit different. I'm mainly talking about political views. When we think of the case of cult members, we tend to look at them as victims. These are people who have crazy beliefs, but they're people who didn't choose their beliefs. They're people who were lured in by a belief that kind of made sense on its face. It was benign. It wasn't that crazy. But then over time, they become enclosed in an ideological bubble or a religious bubble of some kind. And more, they're fed these beliefs, and their reasoning is led along to believe crazier and crazier things until years later, they're believing absolutely crazy things. But to them, they now think that they have arrived in reality. They think, now I see things clearly. I've awoken. I'm awake now, right? Even though they haven't become they haven't gotten closer to reality, they've drifted farther from reality. Now, cults, we define cults, we tend to look at them as small. If a group of people who believe something crazy are small, we think of them as a cult. But as some people say, cult plus time equals religion. Cult plus numbers equals political movement. And we have seen political movements in our time or through the centuries that were cults, where you had crazy beliefs, you had a closed system, an ideological bubble. And that's where we're at right now in America. We are getting what you might look at as two cults, left and right, far left and far right, that are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But whether it's a religious cult or a political movement that gets more extreme, the psychological mechanism is always the same. It starts with things that just make sense. It starts with things that just appeal to the person's moral character. And over time, as they become enclosed in an ideological bubble and they're only talking to other people within that belief system, it's really easy for their beliefs to become crazier and crazier and crazier. And meanwhile, like any other cult, they think they're getting closer to reality, not farther from it. They think they've awoken. They think, now I'm living in reality. Now I see things as they really are. If we take the case of, say, like the alt-right, okay? The alt-right, members of the alt-right, in the case of, say, Richard Spencer, who's a thought leader of the alt-right. He's a spokesman of sorts of the alt-right. He believes that America is the property of European Americans. And he believes that everything would be better if all the non-white people were just to leave and America could be an ethno-state. Okay, this is crazy. Now, in his mind, it's not as if he knows that, it's not like he knows really that we're all equal and that all Americans of every race and religion and gender or whatnot, that they all have an equal claim on America. It's not like he knows that, but then he chooses to believe in racist ideology. He thinks he's arrived. He and others in the alt-right, they don't call themselves racist, they call themselves race realists. They believe that they're living in reality. All of us believe that we see things clearly, that our beliefs line up lockstep with reality. The fact is, none of us do, none of our internal realities perfectly mirror external realities. Some people have a more distorted internal reality than others. All of us, in certain areas of our life, our reality is a little distorted. In other areas, it's more clear. But we all are living in essentially a matrix. And every person believes that their matrix is reality and that everybody else is living in a matrix. So my point with this is, what this has enabled me to do when I've separated people from their beliefs and not seen people responsible for their beliefs, is it's enabled me to humanize people. It's enabled me to humanize people who have bad beliefs, moving their actions aside that might be bad for the beliefs themselves. It's enabled me to humanize them. I strongly believe that humanization, though it might not be the one solution to all the world's problems, all the conflicts between human beings, it is a huge part. Whenever we have seen anything through history or in modern times, the worst things that humans have done to each other, it's because humans have dehumanized other humans. That's the only way they can commit some of these horrible things, do some of these horrible crimes against each other. And humans, unfortunately, are really quick and really good at dehumanizing, whether it's on race, ethnicity, religion, gender. The big one now is politics. We now, much more now, dehumanize people who believe differently than we do. And I think this is a huge problem because this is the biggest obstacle to conversation. So that's my thought. That is what I've been thinking about a lot and what has changed my views. I'm really curious as to what you guys think. Do you think I'm onto something, or do you think my belief is crazy? Let me know, and let me know why in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay doubtful. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it useful, please drop a like. And if you'd like to see more, please subscribe. There's a lot more to explore.